visualizing information, visualizing data allows you to see new connections. And also the information becomes like a material. You can, like Lego there, or you can roll it out into different medium, tell a different kind of story. I did a similar thing, visualizing the budget in the UK. I'm based in London, and in the UK we're facing, like many other countries in the Eurozone, a large budget deficit, 175 billion pounds, that's around about 190 billion euros. And I was curious, because again, I couldn't imagine what that was. So I could see by visualizing it that it's more than we earn from income tax a year in the UK, 152 billion rather. But still, I'm struggling a little bit to understand and get these into my mind, because these are quite abstract amounts, they're still billions. So I was wondering if there's a way of bringing these numbers down to earth more. Is there a different kind of metric I can use so I can relate to them more readily? So I came up with this. I took the same numbers and I translated them into the amount an average taxpayer contributes to each area per day. And thinking here is that you may not know what you spend every day, you may not know what you spend every month, but you definitely know what you spend every day. And so I can understand that in our health service we spend £9 a day. We give £9 a day in tax, which is about 10, 11 euros. We spend 3p on museums, and we spend £2.93 on Scotland, which you may consider to be good value. So the attempt here is to make a connection, take the data and make a connection to me, or a human being, or to my life, so I can understand it. It becomes like a portal, a prism. It opens up the data so I can relate to it. So that's one thing to bring the data down to earth. Another thing I love doing is, as a journalistic side of me, is always hunting for stories, hunting for patterns. And data often has patterns hidden in it. If you ask it the right question, it can reveal that. So I'm going to ask you to think about fear. What are we most scared of? What are the biggest fears in the world? What would a timeline of the world's biggest fears look like? Here it is. So I'm going to label this for you. Along the bottom we've got time, obviously. And the height here is the intensity that each fear has been mentioned in the media. So here, pinky, this is swine flu. This is bird flu. This is SARS. Remember that one? This is the millennium bug, this grey spike in the corner. Here along the middle, these green little ridges, asteroid collisions. And then these blue humps, killer wasps. So these are our greatest fears, perhaps, as measured in the media. And I was just curious, because it seems like every couple of years there's a new kind of fear that comes in and we're all scared about something. So I was wondering if there's any patterns, any rhythm to this. And I was surprised, because when I created this diagram, I found something kind of unusual that I wasn't expecting. Let me show you it. This is the pattern for violent video games. So this is the fear that violent video games are influencing our young and causing violent incidents. And you can see that there's a regular shape to this pattern, twin peaks every year. And if you look closely, you can see the peaks appear in the same months every year. November, April, November, April. Why? Well, in November, Christmas video games come out, so there's often an upsurge in the concern about the content. But April isn't a particularly big month for video games. But there is a reason why that story, that fear, keeps punching through every year. Does anybody know? No? Well, it's actually quite tragic. In April 1999 was the Columbine shooting. And that tragedy was linked to violent video games. And that since then there have been court cases by the parents and retrospectives and even copycat shootings. And so the two stories now, violent video games and Columbine, have become entwined in the group mind. And as we remember, or as we start to forget maybe, these two stories now overlap. I created this image with a tool called Google Insights, which some of you might use, which tracks the intensity of keywords over time. And this is the result. This is the correlation between Columbine shooting and violent video games. The two patterns are now interwoven. And I was looking again at this when I was preparing a slide a few months ago, and I noticed another odd pattern. You see how the fears kind of disappear and then reappear again. And you look at the timing of that. Look where they end. September 2001, when we had something very real to be scared about. So often in the data there are patterns, there are stories, and it's about coming in at the right angle, coming in with the right kind of question to reveal them. I want to show you another type of landscape now. This image was online quite a lot, so you may know the answer to this, but I want to just test your minds here. I want to see if you can guess what this data set is. What peaks twice a year, once around about Easter and then 2 weeks before Christmas, has little mini peaks every Monday and then flattens out in the summer. Any guesses? You can shout out. Stress? You would be stressed. Anything else? Shall we see? We scraped 100,000 Facebook status updates for the phrase, "we broke up because," and this was the pattern that was revealed. So we see a curious cleaning out session around Easter, a mysterious peak around April Fool's Day, like a bizarre joke you might want to play on someone, people coming out of bad weekends on the Mondays, clear out before summer, you want to be young, free, and single in the summer, and the lowest day of the year, of course, Christmas Day. Who would do that? But again, we're generating so much data. You know this. Twitter, Facebook, it sees of it, a vast ocean of data. And again, if you ask it the right kind of question, you come from the right angle, it might reveal something. And this has led to a phrase that I hear quite a lot in this realm, which is data is the new oil. It's this idea that it's a kind of ubiquitous resource that we can mine for innovation and insights. And I think that's a good metaphor. I think that's fairly true. But I would adapt it slightly, and I would say data is the new soil. Because for me, it's like a fertile medium. It's like almost like clay, like a new kind of material that you can mold and play with. And we've been kind of fertilizing and irrigating this medium with internet and the web and networks for many years. So now things like visualizations and infographics and information designs, they're like flowers that can bloom from this soil. I think playing with the material is a good metaphor when you're faced with the quite overwhelming amount of data, and sometimes it's quite inherent seriousness, it's grid-like type qualities. So often I just play around, I do little side projects, and I'm just following my curiosity. I had a curiosity about this. Do horoscopes just all say the same thing? Do they? I don't know. So let's see. How do they do that? So I scraped 22,000 horoscopes from Yahoo's horoscope database. I had to employ the services of a hacker and try and navigate Yahoo's anti-hacking countermeasures. If you hit the site too many times, it triggers all kinds of anti-measures. But eventually we got the frequency right. It's 1/10 of a second, by the way, if you want to do any hacking of Yahoo. So we scraped them, and then we did a word frequency analysis, and we visualized the most common words in each prediction. So the red words here are unique to each star sign, and the other words are the most common words. So we can see that Taurians are very worrying. They worry a lot, and Virgos are totally perfect. Is that true, Virgos? Yes. So the cool thing was it gathered all these. So I've got the most common words in all of the horoscopes. So that means I can now create a single prediction for all star signs that will apply for every day of the year, right? Okay. So this is it, the top 40 words. Whatever the situation or secret moment, enjoy everything a lot. Family and friends matter. Keep making love. The world is life, fun, and energy, may be hard or easy. Change your mind and a better mood will come along. The ultimate prediction. So this is just a side project. I was just playing here, but in the process of playing, I got a great relationship with a programmer, straight hacker. I learned to do word frequency analysis. I did a visualization. I played around. I released this online. I learned a lot of skills through playing that I can now apply to any other project I'm doing. So there's a virtue in just allowing yourself to be creatively free with data and just muck around, essentially. Get in the dirt, get in the soil. I mean, obviously I do more serious stuff, and for The Guardian I often do data journalism. So that's taking data and trying to find a story, and trying to work a story out of it. Here's one I did recently that you might find interesting. It starts with a simple question. Who has the biggest military budget in the world? Anybody? The US, right. You saw it in the diagram. This is actually from a different year, but it's $607 billion in 2008. And there are all the other top military budgets in the world. And in fact, the USA's budget is so big, it can contain all the others inside it. There are some numbers for context. Now, that might chime with your perception of America being a vast military power out to kind of overtake the world with its might. But is it true, is it really true that America has the world's largest military budget? Because America is a vastly wealthy country. In fact, it's so enormously wealthy it can contain all the top 4 other industrialized top economies inside itself. So its military budget is bound to be disproportionately large. And it's bound to just look enormous. So to be fair, you have to bring in another data set and what we call normalize it so that it's fairer and truer picture. So it has to be, how much do people spend, how much do countries spend as a proportion of their income, as GDP? And when you change the data like this, when you normalize the data, this happens. A bunch of new countries spring into view that were hidden through the absolute figures we're using, and the USA drops to 4th. So then it becomes a why, and you can explore reasons why. But we're now living in a connected world. And a number that stands alone, like an absolute number, a figure that isn't connected to any other data, is no longer as true as it used to be. In order to be fully true or more fully rounded, a number has to be connected to another number. There's another great visualizer called Hans Rosling, you might know the work of. And he has a key phrase, it's like, let the data set change your mindset. So I use the data as a lens to correct your vision, to make your vision more accurate, more full. I did a similar thing with soldiers. Who has the biggest army in the world? Anybody? China, right. So again, 2.1 million strong. Again, might chime with your perception of China as an industrialized nation, a militarized nation. But again, of course, China has a huge population. In fact, it's vast, so you have to take into account population size. And if you do that, it changes it radically. China actually drops to 124th in the world. It actually has a tiny army for its size. So data is a lens. It is a way of seeing a fuller, a more rounded picture.